Ba weep grana weep ninny bong. Hello again, Autobodies and Decepticons, and welcome back to Transformers Autobook Club. This episode, and the next two after it, will have a returning guest, making Justin of the Iron Age of Comics podcast the guest on the most episodes so far. The next 3 issues are all ones Justin requested to cover with me as soon as I contacted him way back in summer last year. Now we've finally reached them. This one is going to be another longer episode with a looser edit, but I had so much fun chatting with Justin and it's all relevant to the issue, so I think it's another really good one. We really dived deep into some of the kind of meta and the writing on this issue and discovered some surprisingly complex stuff. I've been so lucky in terms of guests. Everyone's been so great to talk to and so full of enthusiasm for these wild stories. So I just want to take a moment to thank all of them and appreciate all of the time and effort they put into doing this with me. Thank you so much, everybody. Before we get going, there's just a little bit of Transformers news from the week that I want to cover first. Pre-orders and a preview are now up for the next Worst Bot Ever Transformers comic by Brian Smitty Smith and Mars Jr. The kind of pilot episode of this show covered their first book, which was Meet Ballpoint, which introduced us to a Transformer named Ballpoint who was a pen. And now the second one, Bot Swap, is coming on June 14th. The first was such a fun and light-hearted story. I'm going to pick this next one up for sure, though unfortunately I don't think I'll have time to do a video on it this time around. There's one page in particular from the preview that I really liked, so I just wanted to read it out loud and show it to you. Usually I edit the text out, but for a one-page preview, which is already available elsewhere online, I think I should be okay. So here it is. So Ballpoint is trying to recruit new members of his dance crew, and he walks past the kitchen in the Ark, where Bumblebee is talking to Ratchet. And Bumblebee says, Energon is the best. Ratchet says, Bumblebee, did you know that humans consume more than one kind of food? And Bumblebee says, no way, Ratchet, are you serious? And Ratchet says, swear to Unicron. Bumblebee says, this planet is crazy. And then Ballpoint tries to recruit them both into his dance crew, and then Sunstreaker runs through the kitchen. I just thought that was really cute and fun. Like, that's kind of the vibe for those books. Secondly, a company called New Age Toys have announced an upcoming Transformers figure of Wreck-Gar, and I just thought that was really neat. I've never seen one of him before. Looks pretty cool. But that's all I've got in terms of preamble this time, so let's hop right into my chat about this week's issue with the Iron Age of Comics podcast's Justin. Hi, Justin. It's been, I don't know, since August, I think we haven't spoken. So yeah. How are you doing, and how's everything going in 2026 for you so far?
I'm well, as you know, as well as anybody can be in in our world. But yeah, I was looking forward to this all day.
Ah, shucks. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, we had a bit of a chat before we started recording, and things are a bit hairy out there. So I hope everybody's, doing okay.
Mm-hmm. And unplugging where you need to unplug, right? So
exactly, yeah. I really hope this goofy show can be some oasis for some people who need to think about something else for a while. So yeah, we had you penciled in for these episodes. I think since I contacted you the first time, you said that you wanted to do these 3 issues. So without spoiling what happens, can you tell us why these ones in particular were the ones that you wanted to do?
Yeah, well, so these 3 issues are ones that I had. Like I don't remember the first comics that I ever got. I just had like a bunch, like before my living memory. I just had a bunch of comics, right? And included in those were these 3. And last time I think I said that like the Marvel Transformers comic was like a big part of like me falling in love with the idea of a serialized narrative, like things changing and developing over time, as opposed to like the cartoon show, right? Where like everything is sort of mostly especially in the early going of it, like everything is self-contained and sort of resets at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So like this was like a sort of an eye opener. The problem is that when I started reading comic books, I mostly got them from like newsstands or drugstore spinner racks, or maybe like the magazine section at the grocery store. And like there was no comic book store in my town ever.
So you just had to be lucky and find them.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, just whatever they happen to have on the stands and wherever I happen to be. And like if I could convince my mom and dad to buy me a comic book at that time. So like a lot of my earliest comics that I had were just like one-off things that I had no context around them. So it was like a Batman story that ends on a cliffhanger, or like the last part of a Spider-Man story that like I have no idea what happened leading up to it or whatever beyond the recap. So
man,
for the most part, I just like accept that that's how it works, right? Like sometimes you don't know how Batman escapes from Two-Face, right?
That's so important to do if you wanna get into reading comics. Like, that's why I didn't really get into them until I was 30 something. I had to
Yeah,
just make peace with being like, "I don't know what happened before, I don't know everything, and that's fine." But that took me, like, decades to get over that because
decades.
I
Yeah,
yeah, I read manga a lot from, like, my teens to my late 20s, and that's
sure.
like, here's the definitive beginning, here's everything that happens, and here's the end. So, you know everything, and it's really
Yeah.
easy to follow, like, just book you start at book 1 and then you you read through. So, to go to comics where it's like, well, there's all these other continuities and universes, and, like, this has been running since the '30s, so you're not gonna know everything, and I didn't
Yeah.
like that. So I tried even when I got my first job, one of my first paychecks, I bought, like, Marvel Masterworks X-Men, which has, like, the first X-Men comics, and
Mhm.
I so wanted to love them. I really wanted to be into comics, and they're so cheesy and so, like, of the time that I was like, "I don't really like it," and I go so I couldn't I wanted to read X-Men from the beginning to get into X-Men. That's a terrible idea. I don't
Yeah,
recommend
yeah.
anybody do that.
Nobody recommends that. There
No.
I know those early X-Men comics have their fans and stuff, but, like, when people like the X-Men, they like, like, starting at 1975 or something, and then going which is,
Yeah.
like, plenty to read or to have to read if you wanna start from the beginning, but yeah.
But yeah, I never considered that being a kid and like, relying on your parents to agree to buy you one. But I can't imagine being little and trying to explain like, "Y but I need the next one because I haven't finished the story yet."
Well, yeah, and there were, like, multiple Spider-Man books every month, so it's like, well, why what's the difference between Amazing Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man? And the answer is, "So much, mom and dad."
Yeah, trying to explain that to your parents who are like, "Oh, I just no, not this week." Oh, no.
But for whatever reason, I had these 3 in a row, and, like, that was so exciting for me to be able to, like, see I mean, even though, like, it starts, starting at number 10, we're already, like, in the middle of this long ongoing storyline. But at least I sorta get to
Yeah.
see parts of it, like, wrap up, and that was very exciting for me. So I would read, like, all 3 issues in a row just to go, like, and I'm reading, like, the Epic of Gilgamesh or something.
I had a similar experience when I was a kid. There was no comic book store, I think, in my hometown, and if
Mhm.
there was, I didn't know about it. So there was a discount bookstore where, at some point in time, they started getting, like, 3 random comics in a bag, but you could only see the front one. You couldn't see what
Yeah.
the back 2 were, and it was, like, a pound, so, like, a dollar, and I
Mhm.
got, um, like, the movie like, there was a movie called Demonic Toys, and there was a comic adaptation of that, so I
Yeah.
got that,
Wow.
which is really weird. Uh and there was like, a Street Fighter comic by
Hmm.
a company called Malibu, and it's like I found out years later it's famous for, like, everyone hates it and it's terrible, but I
Right.
loved it at the time because I love Street Fighter and, like, didn't really know there was a story or what the story was, so I was really happy to get some story for that, and it was there's, like, a big shocking ending
Hmm.
where they send what you think is Ken's head in a box, and they put it in a car and then put, like, something on the accelerator and crash it into Ryu's dojo, and that's where it ends. I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" And then the letters page in the, like, that issue is like, "Yeah, we've been canceled. There's no more."
Oh my god. That's the
Yeah.
other problem, right? It's like you never know when that axe is gonna fall.
Yeah, and, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that Capcom didn't like where they were going with it. It was really extreme, and also the artwork is not the best going back to look at it, but
Hmm.
I had fun with that as a kid, and I really wanted more comics, but that was, like, all I could get, and it was,
Mhm.
3 random comics in a blind bag, and, like, they were all those. So I bought a couple of them, and then I had to stop because I was like, "Well, I have Demonic Toys 3, like, 3 times now," or whatever. But I liked it because it was my comic, and I actually had a comic. I was really happy to have it.
Oh, yeah, and that's what it's all about. I mean, like, I'm sure there are fans who, like, read these early G1 comics, right? And go like, "Oh, these are, whatever they are or whatever." But, to me, this was like, yeah, this is my story, right?
Yeah. I think these are genuinely really good, though, especially,
Mhm.
like, I think it might come up in it comes in up in this arc anyway. I'm not sure if it's this issue or next issue. Um, but like the relationship between Buster and Sparkplug
Yeah.
is one of the best I've ever read, I think, in comics. It's been really subtle and in the background the whole time.
Mhm.
But they've had this like arc of their relationship already in like 10 or 20, yeah, like 10 issues where like I've got an idea of what the situation was between them and then got some context for Sparkplug and then you kind of see what's going on with Buster and then like those threads are continuing and like intertwining through the whole thing and I'm like really surprised by how invested I am
Oh
in
yeah,
like a
and that, that's
father-son relationship.
right. That's what. Yeah, I mean, that's what was so cool is like reading these. All I had were these 3 issues, but like I watched this thing sort of develop over time and be like, yeah, I got the setup, I got the payoff, I got the resolution. I felt really good about that.
Yeah, it's like crazy, especially for a Marvel comic from the '80s. I'm so surprised. Like I think I say that a bit too often, but I've read a bunch of older comics, and I just didn't think that they were quite as good at character stuff
Mhm.
as this has been.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'd have a I will certainly go to bat for a great many Marvel comics from the '80s, but they were definitely like hit or miss in terms of just
Yeah.
like whatever it is that you choose to read.
Yeah, I think that might have a lot to do with it too, because I read all of X-Force from the '80s.
Oh yeah,
That was a very interesting ride.
yeah,
Lots of arcade, lots of there was one time where they went to hell in Hawaii to rescue somebody's soul from a demon. What else was there in there? Oh, Strife. That makes no sense. I
yep,
don't understand Strife at all. And then one time, everything changed. I think somebody just changed this reality or the universe, and then
yep,
suddenly, what's that guy called? Caliban was there suddenly.
yeah,
It was all very weird. Yeah. Alright, yeah, so should we start going with this story?
yeah. Let's do it.
Alright, so let's get into today's issue, which is the next best thing to being there. The story opens at the aerospace assembly plant, which was formerly owned by GB BlackRock, but now it's controlled by Shockwave, who has taken many of GB's workers as well. And they're, I, I don't want to say hostages because it doesn't really seem like there's any plans to actually release them. So
Right.
they're just slaves at this point.
Yeah.
And inside,
Don't they call them like the fleshling slaves or something in here?
yeah, fleshlings, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, there's some point where Shockwave just refers to them as slaves, and he's like, "Oh, they're inefficient because they need fuel," and he hadn't considered that. Inside, Shockwave is preparing to place the 6 new Decepticon lives he's created by forcing Optimus to use the remnants of the Matrix of Creation, which were left in his brain, into bodies he's had made for them. And he gloats and he taunts Optimus, mockingly talking about how proud he must be feeling to witness this. Of course, Prime isn't happy about any of the situation. He's being kept a prisoner as just a head, and he's been forced against his will to use the Matrix, which he has referred to as sacred, though I don't know enough about this. I don't know if he means literally, like it's actually holy to the Autobots, or if he was just,
It's
speaking highly.
everything. Everything about the creation matrix is so weird, right? And
Yeah.
it's and I can't even imagine. It's such an unusual choice to go here so early. I think in the comics run to be like, all right, well, like we have all these robots, we have good guys, we have bad guys, we have some supporting characters. Let's introduce this like weird metaphysical pseudo religious thing that into also like metal telepathy into all of this, right?
Yeah, that part is confusing to me. The creation matrix I understand, but then why it gives Buster telepathy?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's gonna be explained or not, but Prime doesn't have that, so I don't know why I don't know why Buster has
Yeah,
it.
I kind of expect Optimus Prime to be able to move random metal with his mind, but you never see it.
No. And then actually, I hadn't thought about it till you mentioned it, but the first time I remember the Matrix in the cartoon is in the movie, which is where it's a big
Right.
important part. But before that, they never bring it up. So like you said, this is way before the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if the movie, like, got the if somebody was just flipping through the old comics or, not even that old by that point, but somebody who's flipping by through the comics going like, "Oh, a Matrix. That's an interesting Optimus Prime has a Matrix that is totally different in the movie than it is from than it is here."
Yeah, I was about to say that too. I wonder if this is where they got it from. This is
Mhm.
where like they thought of it and then they took it to the movie. But then it's completely different in the movie. It's a physical object,
Right.
which it's not in this. It's just a program. And then yeah, also the fact that there were, like, bits of it left so that Prime could use it, but only to make these new 6 lives, and then it was used up. Doesn't make sense if it's a program at all. Like, I don't understand how you can have that some of the program left and it worked. What? And then,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like
even
what is it, like 1985, so I mean, like, it's hard to is people's knowledge of how computers work is pretty minimal at this point, probably still.
yeah, that's true. That's very true. But also that they gave it to Prime in the first place makes no sense because he was like, "I'm gonna go do this potentially suicidal mission on this ship," and they gave him
Right.
the Matrix, knowing he might die, which is like but it doesn't. It only gets handed down apparently once every like few millennia or something. So that seems like a weird choice.
Yeah, all the strategy that we see going on here is questionable, tactically.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of weird choices made, but then there's so many good ones too. I think back a few issues ago, Shockwave was like doing his hostile takeover of the Decepticons, and he like makes an example of Megatron and shows everybody like, look, I'm a really good leader, I'm really strong, but I'm also reasonable, and like I took out your old leader, but I left him alive to try and like appeal to the Decepticons, and it worked.
Yeah,
And then now he's making loads of really smart moves and like taking over an oil rig, which is a constant source of energy, taking over the aerospace plant so he can build himself a new army. And now, I mean, we'll get to it in this issue, but I mean,
mhm,
I guess it's not a spoiler since it was on the cover.
right.
He's gonna make the first new Decepticons he makes are Decepticons who can make stuff. So he's making lots of really smart moves.
I really always really enjoyed, Shockwave in these issues because, like, I didn't have any, Megatrons on in these, right, obviously. So,
Mm.
like, I never had a Megatron action fig a Megatron toy, right? And so, like, I always had to, like, pick my own, whoever the commander was, right? And and so, like, I sort of really
Oh,
I like that idea of, like, yeah, it doesn't have to be always be, like, these 2 people, like, somebody else can be in charge, and now there is some, like, questionable canonicity for, Quake to be the that's who I always pick to be the leader just because, like, he's kinda Megatron-y, he had a big gun turned into a tank.
okay. I don't know Quake yet. I'll find out, I guess, when they come up.
Mhm.
But I wonder in the comics if there was ever a time that Starscream actually got to be the leader. Through all the cartoon, he's always trying so hard, and it actually never worked.
Yeah, it's,
It never.
he's got ambition and stick-to-itiveness, so you gotta give him a hand for that. I like the idea that maybe Starscream doesn't even really wanna be the leader, he just hates Megatron.
It does seem that
I don't
way, yeah.
I don't wanna be the leader, I just hate this dude.
Yeah, I don't want to be the leader. I just don't want this guy to be the leader. They think he's gone too. He got buried under some snow, and then for some
Right.
reason everybody was like, "Ah, yeah, he's probably gone for good." What? He can transform. He'll be fine. Just snow.
Well, they don't do they
I can't
don't
wait.
maybe they don't know what snow is, right? Because that's the whole
Oh, yeah.
they don't know what hot dogs and trees are, so
That's true. That's, like, really good headcanon. Oh, they thought
yeah.
the snow was so deadly. He was gone. So, yeah, Prime's, not happy about any of this, and, of course, the 6 new lives that he's been forced to create are gonna become Decepticons and therefore his enemies, so, yeah, he's been kind of forced to create more people for him to fight.
Mhm.
I'd be really cheesed off too if that was me.
And just being ahead, I mean,
Yeah, yeah, that's I think it comes up in this issue too, where Prime's, like, just stuck here watching all this, and he's getting kind of depressed, which is fair enough. He's
yeah,
like, he doesn't like the whole situation, and he has to watch all of this that's going on. He can't do anything. He's got no arms, no legs, just a head.
right. Yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic to be like to show like the most, in the cartoon, obviously, like I think of him as the most powerful Autobot or whatever, and just totally helpless and yet conscious.
Yeah, it's really sad, and they do a good job showing his mental state. They give us some like time to kind of catch up with him, which I really like.
Yeah.
But speaking of Prime, his head is missing the like fin things that are on either side in this picture,
Yeah,
so it looks like just a regular old. Looks like a Lego head.
right. Yeah, he's missing the Batman ears.
Yeah. And, oh, it comes up here, just like I was saying, he's in a really poor mental state, which is understandable. He says that he feels only loathing towards Shockwave for this entire state of affairs and having been forced into doing all of this. But more than that, he's feeling self-loathing for bringing the Transformers to Earth at all in the first place, and the
Mhm.
dangers they pose to humans along with them, which is only half Prime's fault. I'm gonna die on this hill, I think. Auntie suggested it, and Prime just said, "Yeah, okay, that seems sensible and the best course of action." But Prime didn't have that idea on his own, and weirdly topical, AI gave him a
Oh,
terrible
yeah, that's
idea.
I was gonna say that's why you always gotta double check these things, right?
Yeah. So when ChatGPT said, "Yeah, why don't you crash land on Earth into a volcano?" And Prime went, "Oh, yeah, all right."
Alright, I'm invested in this thing, so I
But yeah, I really like that about Prime, that along with dealing with the entire war and all the Decepticon plans, he often shows guilt about the war being brought to Earth and his part in that.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that's really thinking more than you need to about the characters and giving them much more depth and personality than I would have necessarily expected from this.
Yeah, definitely. Like he's like the classic like reluctant warrior.
It's such a good one, man. It's just so good.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, like I said, I read all of the 80s X-Force comics, and nobody was ever this complicated. At least I didn't think so in
Oh yeah,
those. No one
I
ever had like a crisis
no.
of like guilt and stuff.
Yeah, those are pretty characterization light, but
Since the beginning of these comics, Prime's first and foremost concern has been protecting the innocent human bystanders, even at times when he and the other Autobots had been under Decepticon attack. I think that was in I can't remember which issue now. One of the first 4 issues, Sparkplug and Buster get attacked by Decepticons, and his very first order is like protect the humans, make sure they're okay. So like, yeah, since the beginning, he's really been trying to protect the humans, which I think is so sweet.
yeah.
2 plant workers are close by, and it looks like they're making a circuit board or something like that. And one whispers to the other to ask about what Prime and Shockwave are talking about. And he calls the other man Gabe. And the other man, Ferdy, says that ever since the plant got taken over, he's decided just to quietly follow orders, and he's given up trying to even understand what they're talking about. But we saw Gabe and Ferdy in issue 7. They were the ones who found Soundwave out in the parking lot and took him inside. So I was surprised to
Mhm.
see these old minor characters actually come back. That was really cool.
Yeah, they're sort of the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of Transformers.
Yeah, yeah, totally. There are some other minor characters that I think it's really funny, but maybe people listening think it's really silly. But I really want
Yeah,
Mitchell
no,
and Doris.
right.
Yeah, I really want them to come back. I wanna know more about them. And then we get the credits down here at the bottom. So Bob Budiansky is still writing. A
Mhm.
new artist this time on pencils, Ricardo Villamont, or Villamonte, I don't know how to say that. Brad Joyce is the inker. Janice Chiang is the letterer. Nel Yomtov is the colorist again, of course. And Mike Carlin is the editor. And Jim Shooter is the editor-in-chief. I will say the artists change pretty often in this, but if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't necessarily notice. I think they're doing a really good job of keeping the at least the Transformer designs not completely the same. There's often errors,
Mhm.
but the style that they draw them in generally looks pretty much the same to me. I don't
Yeah,
know if
yeah,
it's just my untrained eye or
no, I think I mean, I certainly when I was a kid, I didn't notice, like, I barely thought about credits, right, when I was a kid, but,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but, Ricardo Viamonte or Villamonte or whatever his name is, he is actually, I think, best known for, like, Conan the Barbarian stuff that he drew, and
Oh,
so, like, like, I don't know, I'm not very familiar with his career or whatever, but I just know that he's, like, sort of more in the fantasy sphere lately, that or at least or more that I know of him in, so it's unusual to see him drawing, like, technology and robots and, people wearing baseball hats, right? Which is not something
yeah,
you
that
have in
must be
Conan the
weird.
Barbarian.
Actually, now that I'm looking at it closely, who is that with the mustache and the hat on with a D on it? Their hands are massive. They've got
Yeah.
really big hands and forearms.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there are places in here where, like, sometimes the art looks a little rushed or just, like, they don't really
Mm,
know. I mean, the eh, certainly nobody here who was drawing this thought, like, "Oh, yeah, people are gonna be talking about this on a podcast in
I know.
in 40 years," so I just go like, "Oh, these hands are good enough. I'm going to lunch."
I really want to talk to somebody who worked on this at some point if I can. I don't know
Mhm.
who on earth would agree to that, but I would feel so in 2 ways about it. One, I feel a bit self-conscious because 'cause I've been making fun of it when it's funny. But I've also been really enjoying the things that really work, and I wanna talk to, like if I could talk to Bob Budiansky or somebody, I just wanna be like, did you expect it to become this thing and, like, endure for this long? Like, I bet nobody working on any of these thought they would have any impact at all. But they're so good, though. They're not, like, rushed and, like, just like, "I'll put out some rubbish with robots in it for kids to buy." They
Yeah.
really thought about it way
Yeah,
more
I
than
mean,
they needed to.
yeah, there's definitely like, a level of craft throughout. I mean, like, they got I mean, the people who are doing these various issues, they're all, like, veterans and stuff. They're not, like,
Yeah.
getting people in off the street, and be like, "Hey, can you draw, like, 5 pages of this or whatever?" They are putting their, like, veteran artists on this, and, it's important for, like, a license book that they wanna impress the license holders, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And they got to keep it for a long time, so
Yeah.
but he said this guy works on Conan. Conan is one of the older comics that I do wanna read because some of the Conan that I've read more recently is different than other comics because I think it's based on a novel, so you get bigger text or like narration boxes, but they're really like floral. Is that the right
Oh,
word to
yeah.
use? Like, I
No,
really like
I
that though.
know. Right. Yeah, I mean, that's throughout the Conan. I mean, I don't read I haven't read a whole lot of Conan comics, but, like, anytime you do, it's like you are in for the purple prose and the magic lighty knot kind of thing of
Yeah.
Conan.
Yeah, I really wanna go back and read those. I think Titan got the license back and they reprinted, like, from the beginning, the Conan comic.
Hmm.
So I really wanna get those at some point. 'Cause it's another example, like Transformers, where it's like, "You're a big barbarian character, go fight stuff and have sex with women." Where the story is not necessarily that cerebral, but the writing is so good that it makes it really good. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
really like
like,
that.
and like Transformers, it was an early Marvel license
Mm.
back in the 70s.
Shockwave says, at length, that Prime's compassion and respect for the creatures of Earth is completely logical. Even as slaves, which Shockwave now has plenty of, they're basically worthless and entirely inefficient. Inefficient? Inefficient. But what defies logic more is how Prime is able to lead the Autobots with a character flaw as big as this. But all of that is in the past now, and it's no longer relevant, especially now that they're about to witness creation itself. He tells Prime to watch as the 6 brain modules he has painstakingly created are pulsing with life that was given to them by Prime's creation matrix. Some strange looking cables and metal plates are put onto rectangular shaped boxes, which I guess contain their brain modules. Last issue, they were shown as like these small glowing things. So maybe they're inside there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's an issue with the different artists doing stuff, and it's like, "Hey, draw a computer brain," right? And I give you no reference for what that's supposed to look like.
Yeah, I kind of wonder the timelines for these. Maybe they're being worked on at the same time. So yeah, there's not like they can't look back for a reference. They just got to draw what they think it's going to be. So these brains have changed from like being in. They look like Big Mac boxes. Then they were like little circles with lights coming out, and now they're whatever this is.
Yeah.
This looks more like a brain though. Like the rectangular box has all these like mechanical parts in it that makes it look kind of brain like. It's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Shockwave says that their circuits are being flooded with data and that each is being encoded with their functions. Their very beings, he says, are being stamped with their ultimate purpose. And the machine has these like little yellow sparklies to show us, I guess, that they're alive now.
Yeah.
Shockwave makes clear, as if it weren't implied heavily enough, that their purpose is to take over Earth and to get rid of the Autobots. The armatures and mechanical instruments all start moving, and Gabe asks Ferdy why they're all suddenly pointed in their direction. Gabe says he doesn't know, and like he said, he doesn't ask questions. He says, I just, duck!
Hmm.
And the two of them manage to avoid being zapped by various lasers that start coming out of the machinery. And there's a big burst of light, and Shockwave says that the brain modules are now fully enlarged. I don't know if that was meant to say enlarged.
That's probably wrong, right?
It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, wow,
Like,
I've never noticed that typo before.
yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I'm sure that's wrong, like, just it was supposed to be, like, energized or
Yeah, I think so
something, or
too.
engaged or
Yeah,
something, but
exactly. I feel like I shouldn't be guessing entire words in the script because once you start doing that, you can break the entire comic. But I like this was written
yeah.
by somebody and then checked by somebody else. But then saying that last issue we had Prowl saying "bounce me," which didn't make any sense. He was talking about they drove off a cliff, and if he had wanted to kill GB Blackrock, he would have let him bounce him on the floor. I think the me was not supposed to
Huh.
be there. I think it was bounce on the floor,
Oh,
which
right.
would have made
Oh, right, bounce, yeah, bounce on
made
the
sense.
floor, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, as much as there's, like, editors and layers of stuff, like, a lot of stuff just gets through. I mean, like, there's tons of I don't know if this has been corrected in that compendium that you're looking at, but, like, there's just tons of coloring errors, like,
Some, but not all of
here
them.
and there throughout,
Yeah.
right?
So, yeah.
Or Prime's missing Batman ears, right?
Yeah, this far in, where, like, I think by now even the cartoon might have started by now. Like, there's references to
Mhm.
look at to see those, but they just forgot or and then, yeah, like, somebody checked the artwork too, I assume, and was I mean, but to check every bloody Transformer and every single detail, that's impossible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as much as I don't wanna start second guessing even down to the script, we've got like previous evidence that it has been wrong. So if something doesn't make sense in context, I'm going to call it out. Shockwave says that they're ready to be installed into the bodies which he has designed to be unique for each one of them. Ferdy and Gabe stand up once the procedure is complete and say that they hope this doesn't happen every time they have to do this. And then the other says that they think their mustache got singed. And in the last panel, the machines get faster and faster. And then over the page it says, until finally, Ferdy and Gabe stare in disbelief at what Shockwave has created. Shockwave says, "Behold, Optimus, the Constructicons." So Johnny was right, and it makes perfect sense that like the Dinobots before them, the Constructicons have a way more narratively sensible and interesting origin in the comics than they do in the show.
Yeah.
Given Shockwave's moves of taking over the plant and the oil rig, and then his first newly created soldiers are now going to be able to build structures and also combine into a massive and extremely strong Titan. Strategically, really smart and a really good move.
Yeah.
I don't know about the relative sizes of Devastator and Shockwave, but I wonder if Devastator could potentially hold and fire Shockwave. Not that it really seems like he needs to be held to be fired, because
Right.
he can just fly around and shoot anything he wants. But Shockwave introduces us to Scavenger, Mixmaster, Longhaul, Bone Crusher, Scrapper, and Hook. Though all in robot mode, so I'm really not sure which one is which.
Mhm.
Some of the names, this is so funny to me. Like Mixmaster and Hook, like yeah, you can tell what they're gonna do, right? You can tell what kind of construction vehicle they're gonna be. But Bone Crusher,
Yeah.
like comes out of nowhere.
That could be any Transformer.
Exactly. I feel like, yeah, have you seen Reservoir Dogs where they're arguing about why do I have to be
Yeah.
Mr. Pink? I feel like everyone's like, why don't I get to be Bone Crusher? Clearly the
Right.
coolest
Why do
name.
I have to be Scavenger? That's not very very complimentary.
Right. So their job is going to be to build Decepticon bases all over the world, and they're going to be the architects of Shockwave's empire. Scavenger is the first to speak, telling Shockwave that they've been programmed with their mission and that they're awaiting his orders. Shockwave tells Scavenger to proceed immediately, so the Constructicons transform and prepare to leave. Prime watches all this from his place on the wall, knowing that he's helpless to do anything about this. All he can do, he thinks to himself, is bear the responsibility for everything that the Constructicons might do. So, poor guy, he's like been forced into making these things against his will, and he knows they're about to go out and start causing trouble, and he can't do anything, just watch it. So he's like, well, the best thing I can do is just bear the responsibility. So,
Just feel really bad about it.
yeah, poor guy. But you know he's gonna like, I mean, that's all gonna fuel him once he does finally get his body back. And
Mhm.
I still think, I mean, it would make sense for Prime to destroy them, but I just don't think he's gonna do that. Prime is so well done, even this early on in the comic. I think it was last issue, he said he's gonna destroy the Decepticons' evil. So he made really sure not to say you, like, I'm gonna destroy your evil, like, I'm gonna stop you being bad, but
Right.
he didn't make a death threat still, and I love that about Prime.
He hates the sin, not the sinner, right?
Yeah, and that's such a good, that's really hard to do, and, like, I don't feel like there are that many characters that do that. Even in Marvel Comics, is there somebody? I mean, Superman, maybe.
Yeah, I
Batman,
mean,
kinda.
yeah, I think Superman is trying to, like, see the good in people, and I guess even if, I mean, Optimus Prime doesn't really need to see the good in Shockwave. There's no good there.
No.
But, yeah, I think it is focused on, like, I need to stop you. I don't, hate you maybe? I don't wish you dead.
Yeah,
I just want you to go away, right? And if I have to fight you to make you go away, we will do that.
right, yeah, I think that's right. Shockwave's a really interesting character because where Megatron is, like, joyfully evil, like, he knows what he's doing and he's having fun doing it, and he makes some really questionable decisions. Like, he sacrifices
Mhm.
strategy for being a dick on purpose.
Right.
Shockwave seems much more like, I'm not doing this to be evil or like taking necessarily pleasure in doing things that are not nice. I'm just doing them because they further my goal. Like I get what I want if I do this. So regardless of if it's good or not, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think that makes him it's a really interesting idea. And again, like, they could have just had Megatron forever, right? Like,
Yeah.
but the idea of, like, switching off and showing that, like, there are two different, there can be multiple different kinds of evil. There can be a guy like Megatron who is just like, he just loves being evil and like is just sadistic for no reason. And you
Yeah.
have like Shockwave, who I think like he seems to like enjoy maybe a little bit he seems to take pleasure from um being efficient and like being logical or whatever.
Yeah.
But Yeah, he's I mean, like, Shockwave is, I think, inarguably the better commander
Oh,
at this
yeah. Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. 100%. There was a time Megatron could have just, like, killed Ratchet and it would have stopped the Autobots being able to come back, but he just decided to toy with them, and it was his downfall,
Yeah.
which, I mean, it totally fits for Megatron, I think. At least I think my
Oh, yeah.
opinion of Megatron has changed a little bit because of these comics, where now I think he's that kind of character. He's all hubris and all like kind of cartoon villain, like, "Ah, ha, ha, I'm gonna explain all of my plan to you before I kill you." Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? That's Megatron for me, I think.
Yeah, I like the idea that, like, maybe you have a bad guy who, like, is sort of his own worst enemy or, like, gets in his way, is his own way.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. But I still kind of love him though, and I loved in previous issues where the military were surrounding the Decepticon base, and then his play was, "I'm gonna go outside and let them fire on me for 15 minutes to show them they can't hurt me, and then walk away." Oh, man, I love that so much. It's so, like, so ballsy and so, like, I don't know. It's just such a big, bold statement to make.
Yeah, Megatron is all about theater, right?
Yeah.
Like, he wants you to know that he's the baddest guy in town. Shockwave is just like, I need to get this I need to get all this work done.
Yeah, and I so different than the cartoon. I don't know who came up with this, but I love it. But and if you watch the cartoon
Yeah.
first and then come to this, you're like, "What? This is Shockwave? This is like that mild-mannered, bumbling servant up in, Cybertron who's like, 'Ah, yes, yes, Megatron, I'll do what you say.'" And then this is, like,
Yeah.
fighting tooth and nail with Megatron and, like, being the most terrifying Transformer there is so far. In my head now, he's got have you seen the Star Trek, like, movies from 2000 something? They had Zachary
Yeah.
Quinto was, Spock. That's the voice that I have in my head for Shockwave now.
I think there's definitely sort of a, like, a Spock thing going on with, like, the idea about being, like, logical, and he's always, like, calculating those possibilities about, like, I predicted this with a 96.3,
Yeah.
you know, probability. Yeah.
Anyway, poor Prime. So he's gonna take on the guilt of this on top of everything else. I feel really bad for him, like, in this issue. He's, like, such a caring and sensitive character, and ever since the revelation that Auntie was the one who suggested crashing onto Earth, which, yeah, like I mentioned before, I just feel was not necessarily entirely his fault. I feel worse for him because of all these things that do involve him, but none of them were his idea. Which
Yeah, he's always on the back foot.
yeah, poor guy. Shockwave stole the remains of the Matrix from his mind, and then his head was removed from his body, so he couldn't have possibly fought back. And then he had to create
Mhm.
these new Decepticons, which he knows will harm all his friends and maybe the humans, which he's also really concerned about. And he has to sit and watch all of it. And instead of anger or rage or even despair, he just feels guilt, like really heavily. I, Ryan,
Yeah.
I can't wait for him to like literally get back on his feet. Next, we go over to the Cascade Mountain Range, which it says is in northern Oregon. And in that mountain, there's a unique object, though we've seen it before. It's GB's first time aboard the Ark. And it looks like Prowl is showing him around. And GB asks if the Ark is an enormous spacecraft, which Prowl explains that it is. And that even by Autobot standards, the Ark is extremely big. Which means there was a lot of it to be damaged when they crashed into Mount St. Hilary 4 million years ago. Eh, Not to go on too much of a tangent, but why on earth did they build a ship many, many times bigger than it needed to be, when its intention was to fly out ahead of a planet and destroy an asteroid field? Like, wouldn't you want it to be small and nimble and efficient? That doesn't make sense.
They're just lucky, I guess, right? 'Cause
Yeah, it worked out for them, but why would you make a massive ship if you needed to be able to dodge between whatever? It doesn't make sense. I'm pretty certain that's a logical hole that will just never get addressed, which I don't know. I point these things out, but I just find them so amusing. Like I don't get upset or be like, "Oh, that's so stupid." Like I just think that's funny.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's you with it. I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of superhero comics, right? And, like, the entire premise, like, of any superhero is just like, nobody will recognize them, right? I mean,
Yeah, yes.
like, if you see different actors in different Batman masks, you can tell which one is which.
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll just, like, yeah, I'm going into this, and, like, I'll point yeah, I can point out things that are silly or whatever, but, like, I'm enjoying on some level, like, that's part of the enjoyment.
Yeah, I think so
Not to,
too.
like, sneer at these things, but, like, yeah, we all know this isn't really realistic, but we're going along with it.
It's fun. Prowl continues that there's still a lot of the Ark that needs to be repaired, and now that the Autobots are being repaired and we awakened for the second time here on Earth, maybe they have time to do that at some point. GB tells Prowl to call him GS, but I think that's another text error caused by the recoloring
Yeah, I
process.
think actually, I can tell you because I have the originals,
Oh
like, right in
yeah.
front of me. This is super smeared, like, the printing,
Oh.
at least on my copy, is really bad. There's a I'm gonna drop a little comics, behind the scenes history on people.
I loved it.
There is a process called flexographic printing, and, like, the deal is that, like, comic book used to be printed on, like, metal plates, and, like, the ink and then pressed down or whatever.
Oh.
At some point, they switched that to plastic plates because those are much cheaper than
Mhm.
metal, but the problem is that, like, they don't last very long because they're made of plastic and not metal, so, like, you would have,
Oh,
comics, like, where, like, halfway through the print run,
right. It starts to
that
wear
black
down.
ink would start getting blue. Yeah, because this page on in my copy, like, the panel of GB in the corner is basically just a weird smear of of black and blue and yellowish smudges.
Oh, no. I didn't know that. So then I have questions about this now. Are there people
Yep.
who have the metal plates? Like, do the metal plates get like, are they a collectible
I
thing? 'Cause that's cool.
I wonder about that. Yeah, I would almost bet that I wonder if they, like, melt those down or
Oh, yeah, I guess so,
reuse
yeah.
them or something? I don't know, or maybe there's some sort of recycling process, but
That 'cause yeah, 'cause you
yeah,
can imagine that would
that's
be a really cool thing to have, like, the plate that created X amount of issues of whatever comic. That's really awesome. But yeah, like you said, I guess
yeah.
they don't exist because 'cause I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I also just imagine, like, a huge chunk of metal or whatever it is gonna be expensive, which is why they switched to plastic, and then
Yeah.
nobody liked the plastic one.
And then so in, like so I love comics, I read a lot of comics, but I don't collect them, I just buy like, omnibuses is about as much as I get into collecting, but does that mean that
Mhm.
for collectors, the prints that are not as the prints that came out really well, that I guess earlier on in
Oh,
the run, are
sure.
they worth more or less to collectors?
Usually, there's different things, definitely things on the cover that, like, people will say, like, "Oh, this one is sort of, like, off register, like, the staples are weird, so this is worth less." I don't know if people get
Even down to the
that far
staples.
into, like, the interiors. I have never been a collector in terms of, like, condition and money, like, everything that I have goes in, like, these big long boxes,
Uh-huh.
whether it's something that I bought, like, yesterday or something that's from 1967 or
Oh,
something, right? So,
that's the way I would do it
people are
too.
often horrified by how poorly I treat my comic books.
No, I don't yeah, I don't know. Collecting is a thing that it's not for me either. I think they're books,
Mhm.
you're supposed to read them and enjoy them. And that's I mean, I'm not saying like, I'm totally happy for those people to do that if that's what makes them happy,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
awesome, but this is not how I would go about it.
Yeah, I like comic books and they get beat up a little bit and they're, a little creased and, like, it's all, like, part of the story of that
Yeah, it's
particular issue in that particular.
like a weathered T-shirt or
So,
whatever.
yeah, 'cause, I buy old comics and stuff, and I'll see, like, somebody, cut out an ad or, like, wrote their name on the inside cover, like, "This belongs to, Billy," or whatever,
Oh,
but
that's great.
I'm like,
That's
"Oh,
really
that's
fun.
cool."
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea of, like, yeah, this individual issue has a story
That's super cool. Yeah, I
beyond
never
the
thought
actual
about that.
story.
Oh, yeah, I'd be so thrilled if I pulled the comic out of a dollar bin or whatever, and somebody had, I don't know, done the word search or I don't know what the fuck's in there, but yeah, had, like, written on
Yeah.
it. I'd be like, "That's great." Oh, yeah, the error. Yeah, there was some controversy about this around the Kickstarter because there are a lot of errors, and as a complete novice reading through this and noticing these errors, I could have fixed it for them if they had asked me to, but
Yeah.
they didn't have anybody repair them. Uh, I'm still thrilled to just have these and own them and be able to read them, so I don't mind so much, but there are some people who were very upset that they didn't go through and change all of these back. But either way, he says they're in business now, so they can be less formal with each other. And Proud agrees, and he lays out the term of the deal that Jazz arranged between the Autobots and GB, just in case you didn't read last issue. So the Autobots have agreed to protect GB and to help him get back his oil rig and the aerospace manufacturing plant from the Decepticons in exchange for the energy with which to do so being provided to them by GB. And that's why Prowl invited GB to tour the Ark so that he could get a better understanding of the Autobots. GB, or GS, says it's been a heck of an education. And he asks what Bluestreak and Brawn, who we can see in the foreground here, are doing. Bluestreak is holding a strange object that looks like a huge green screw, and there's like a
Yeah.
heat or laser coming out of the point of it. And Braun seems to be smiling, and that's all. And they're both working on a shiny black sphere. And Bluestreak's face looks really odd, like he's wearing eyeshadow and
Yeah.
lipstick or something. I think it's supposed to
Or
be
he's
the
got like
shadow.
really heavy lines under his eyes, like he's been up too late.
Yeah, I think it's meant to be just a shadow from the light that's coming out of that tool, whatever that tool thing is he's supposed to be using. But yeah, he looks looks pretty weird. Prowl says that they're working on repairing the ionic fusion drive that powers the Ark's spaceflight. So it appears the Autobots are at least attempting to leave Earth, or make it possible to leave
Mhm.
once the Decepticons are dealt with. But they're in kind of a stalemate at this point, since neither can leave Earth without surrendering it to the other side. So I guess that neither side wants to cooperate and negotiate like a simultaneous exodus. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So GB is impressed with how much more advanced the Autobots' technology is than Earth, and he thinks to himself that with what he could learn from the Autobots, BlackRock Enterprises could totally crush its competitors. But he's getting ahead of himself, and he has other things to discuss with them first. GB tells Prowl he appreciates the invitation and the trust that's being built between them. But have the Transformers considered that humans finding out about them and their raging civil war, and that they are giant alien robots, and all of this is taking place on Earth, might cause a global panic? Prowl says yes, that idea had occurred to them, which is why they decided to hide their existence as much as possible. And we've seen a few mentions of that in the past, but it was kind of mixed up though. Like Ratchet wanted to hide that he was secretly a Transformer when he was in ambulance mode at the hospital. But in that same scene where he mentioned that, he kept talking to the humans that were present while he was in ambulance mode. So it was like, it wasn't really clear how seriously or not they were taking it at the time. Like, do you want to be discovered or not? Like, are you hiding you're a robot or not?
Yeah.
So from now forward, at least, it seems like the Autobots are going to be making a more concentrated effort to hide themselves from the humans. But let's see how long that lasts, I guess, because the Decepticons have already been on the news, like, and the military are involved. I just don't feel like.
Yeah, it's I think the genie is out of the bottle, yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I think it's too late for all this, but Prowl does say that he can't speak for how the Decepticons plan to go about things. As we've already seen, neither Megatron or Shockwave seem to be very concerned about hiding themselves from the humans. In fact, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, Megatron made a point of showing himself to the military and how little their weapons can do to him. So it seems like the Autobots are going to be dragged into the spotlight if they're going to be trying to counter any Decepticon attacks that are going to happen. They come to the repair bay, which Prowl introduces to GB as the private kingdom of their chief medical officer, Ratchet. And Ratchet greets GB by telling him that he
Hey.
never seems to run out of patience, which is funny. Because is that a pun? Patience. Yeah, good old Ratchet. I love Ratchet in the American issues. But Ratchet says he
Yep.
does run out of spare parts, and he's working on Jazz, whose arm has come off after last issue's fight with the Decepticons, and Circuit Breaker. Though, actually, we never saw that happen in the last issue. In one panel, Jazz was holding his arm, like, close to his body, but it wasn't, like severed.
Yeah. That could be that could just be another, like, the artist, saw that briefly and was just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna draw
I'm gonna
that
draw the
arm
arm
off.
off.
That'll be fun."
So maybe it was just damaged and then Ratchet had to remove it to fix it or something. But anyway, his arm's off. GB recognizes Jazz and calls to him, and Jazz says, "What's the good word, GB?" Which I can totally hear Scatman's voice. He
Oh,
asks
yeah.
how his partnership with the Autobots is working out so far, but GB is preoccupied with Jazz's missing arm and instead asks how he can just sit there with his arm off. But Jazz, who for some reason they drew with both his visor and his eyes, so he's got his eyes like peeking out from underneath the visor.
Yeah.
He says not to worry, because the Autobots can get hurt and they can feel pain, but they're able to adhere sensory circuitry just to shut them. I guess they can't have that on all the time, because if you could, then why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't you just not be able to feel pain? That's pretty useful.
Yeah. They haven't thought that one through.
No, once they've turned their pain perception off, then it's easy enough for Ratchet to perform any repair work he needs to. And he shows GB his new arm and says, like they say on Earth, we all take a licking, but we still keep on ticking.
Hmm.
Which I've never heard that before, but okay.
That's Timex.
Oh, it's an actual thing. So that's watch company.
Yep, that was their
Oh, okay. It was their like slogan in the 80s or something.
something like that.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
pretty
That's
sure it was
awesome. I didn't
Timex,
know that.
but yeah.
Yes, GB says, but what about him? And then there's a picture of Sunstreaker laying on the table with his entire chest's internal parts exposed, along with part of his face and his shoulder. Jazz says, poor old Sunstreaker, and explains that Ratchet isn't sure if Sunstreaker will ever recover. And I'm going to just put it in here like I have been doing every time this comes up. Trailbreaker was absolutely wrecked in the UK issues and just has never been mentioned again in America or British issues. Like, I don't know. I feel like he just was. They just left him too. He got wrecked, and they just drove off and left him there. It was so callous. I don't know if he's ever going to come back, but I hope so. Poor Trailbreaker. Just like in human warfare, the Transformers War also has its casualties, and the side of right doesn't always win. But that's why the Autobots contacted GB in the first place. If they work together, they can stop the Decepticons. Prowl whisks GB away to continue the tour, and this time he's showing him the communication center, and introduces him to Huffer, who is rebuilding an ultra-frequency monitoring device. Or he should be, anyway. And Prowl asks Huffer what he's doing. Huffer says that he's almost done fixing the transdimensional radio wave scrambler, so there's a lot of words flying around here.
Yeah.
That will enable them to contact Cybertron for the first time in 4 million years, and he shows Prowl and GB a holographic projection of Cybertron. Prowl is very kind and diplomatic with Huffer here, and he tells him that what he's doing is admirable, but in doing it, he's not focusing on his actual assignment. Huffer interjects that he knows that, and he knows what his assignment is, which is to repair the radio wave antenna so that the Autobots can pick up signals from the Decepticons and therefore find out what it is that they're planning. He apologizes for shirking that duty and says that he'll get right back to it. Prowl explains to GB that though they're robots, the Autobots still have many of the same, quote, frailties that humans do, and Huffer is homesick, as are all the Autobots, and that he allowed his feelings to affect his work. He continues to say that the work is vital. Before the Autobots make any moves, they need to know exactly what the Decepticons are planning, because they're concerned for the safety of GB's workers, being held at the plant. And for Optimus Prime, too. And that's the moment that GB notices Prime's headless body is just standing around in the arc.
Yep.
And he asks what it is. So Prowl explains the situation with Prime's head, and that the Autobots cannot rest until they get it back from the Decepticons. GB remarks that it's creepy to have a reminder like that standing around, and he suddenly remembers that the phone lines at his manufacturing plant are bugged, which he says he did to increase security and make sure that nobody was saying anything that they shouldn't. Which sounds like he was just constantly monitoring all of his staff's private conversations.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's legal, is it?
GB Blackrock is such a scuzzy employer, I think. I mean, he's very nice to Josie, right? But apparently he's one of those guys who's like he's monitoring your keystrokes or whatever, or your mouse movement, and it's like, oh, you haven't moved your mouse in 3 minutes. Get back to work.
Oh man, I bet he's totally like that. But yeah, he's being super nice to Josie, and it does seem like he's actually really concerned about her. Like he actually cares about her. On the other hand, though, you need to be really nice to her because she got paralyzed in an accident at work, and she could really do a lot of damage to your company, I think. Mind you, even if she did sue him and win, I don't know, millions of dollars, he's probably fine. He owns a racetrack and an oil rig, and last issue we found out he owns gas stations. Like he's rolling in it.
Yeah.
But Josie, though, was in the hospital paralyzed and still tried to tell him, like, I want to come back to work for you full time. I want my job back. Which is like dedication from her. She must really enjoy what she's doing, I guess. She didn't seem to be mad at him about the accident. She was just more mad that he wouldn't let her team up with him against the robots.
Yeah, I mean, some people. Josie definitely a person who's defined by her job, right?
Yeah, for sure. At least there was never really any time to get to know her as a person. I don't know if that will ever happen later. I will be impressed if it does. But
I'm just saying if I get paralyzed, I'm taking the whole week off of work.
the whole week. Yeah, that's true.
Not
She was
coming in,
paralyzed except
boss.
for one arm. She
Right.
could only move one arm, but she kept working, which was really funny to me because they gave her like this monitor and this giant red keyboard, and then she's continuing to do research and stuff from a hospital bed in the 80s before there's even internet. I don't know what she was doing with one hand from that bed, but she managed to create like a floating camera, so she's amazing.
Yeah.
We know GB is overly paranoid about security from this, but actually it tracks. His oil rig had helicopters and harpoons installed on it.
Right.
Made no sense at the time, but now given this context, made more sense.
Mhm.
To activate the bugs in the phone lines, all he has to do is dial a code into any phone, and then they can listen all they want. So he can do that remotely too. He can do that from his house if he wants to.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this makes any sense, but the handset doesn't even need to be picked up for that to work, which is either like super contrived or super convenient. I don't know if that's realistic and how a phone tap actually works, but it just sounds like James Bond stuff to me. Like, oh yeah, we can
Yeah.
listen into the phone call without even lifting the phone. Like,
Right.
okay, sure. 'Cause those old phones, they used to have like a little raised. What do you even call that? Like a raised thing
Yeah, that,
that was like
yeah, that,
pressure
like
sensitive. So if you put the
right.
phone down, it would push back the little thingy, and then the phone would know it was hung up. So, like mechanically, I'm not sure this is possible.
This is GB BlackRock's special, phone system, which is
Oh, that's
way ahead
true.
of its time. It's his I mean, he probably invented the cell phones that are listening to you
In
and give you the ads for whatever you talked about last time with your with your
Yeah,
with your family, right?
Josie probably invented those. He did.
Yeah.
Prowl asks Huffer if he's able to build a workable telephone unit for GB to use, instead of going just to get one that already exists. But okay, they have phones. You can go buy a phone.
Yeah.
But Huffer says that yes, he can do that before wistfully thinking about how he wishes it was that easy to make a call to Cybertron. Prowl tries to gently redirect Huffer again. He's being so understanding, but
Yeah.
at that moment, from this strange glass orb with a beam coming out of it, a glowing green orb inside it blurts out, calling Commander Prowl, acknowledge. We've never seen this thing before. It's clearly some kind of communications device, but exactly what it is, and if we'll ever see it again, I don't know.
It's huge for what is essentially, like, today a cell phone, right?
Yeah, it looks sciencey, I guess.
Yeah.
Like glass orb with like a beam and these like rings coming out.
Yeah, I mean, it's fancy as as anything, but, um, yeah, could be more portable, but you know what? They got that big ship, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, they got
Yeah,
plenty of
yeah,
space.
they got room. Yeah, this is a really useful thing to have though. If somebody can radio in from which like pretty standard in the cartoon, but hasn't happened before in the comics.
Hmm.
Prowl says that it's their inter-Autobot radio, and it's Bumblebee, and B is calling in from a reconnaissance mission that he's been doing out in the field. So we join B now, with Prowl telling him to go ahead and give his report. B says that something bad is happening at GB BlackRock's plant, and that he can't quite tell what it is. At that moment, Laserbeak flies out and shoots missiles at what B says is a military encampment. So it seems like they've been alerted to this Decepticon takeover and have set up some kind of base of operations outside it. And there's a huge explosion, which stops Bumblebee from being able to see anymore. And down on the ground, the soldiers remark on what's happening. The tanks, armored personnel carriers, and their rifles have started melting. One man tries to radio a report or a request for backup, but his radio starts to melt away too. And he figures that the smoke from the missile Laserbeak fired is what's causing anything made of metal to disintegrate. And from his place on the cliff, Bumblebee notices that all of this is a diversion to distract the military, while 6 vehicles, the Constructicons, drive out of the plant and away. But apparently that gas or whatever doesn't affect them.
Yeah. This is another really, like,
Convenient.
yeah, convenient, like, genre or, like, not even genre, but, like, story-breaking technology that, like, Laserbeak can shoot missiles that can just melt any kind of metal,
Yeah.
like, forget about shooting Jazz in the arm, right? Melt Jazz, you can't
You can just melt him then, yeah.
right,
I guess that's meant to be them showing, like, it doesn't affect Transformers for some reason.
I
But
guess,
I don't
yeah.
remember Laserbeak ever having this power before, or these weapons before. Maybe Shockwave designed them, but this is another one of those things that, yeah, is so useful that they can't use this more than once, right? Like the same as the teleportation room in the
Right.
Ark, which has never been mentioned again. It just breaks stories. You can't have these. Prowl asks Bumblebee to follow them, and he says he'll send backup. And he thinks to himself, including Huffer, who needs some action to lift his spirits. But I'm not really sure that fits for Huffer's personality, though. He's a scientist and a researcher, so I'm not sure he's even going to be very happy to be sent out like into combat. But
Right.
that's Prowl's idea anyway. That says more about Prowl, I think, than it does about Huffer.
Right.
Inside the plant, Shockwave is doing villain things, like telling Prime his plans, though he doesn't exactly lay them out. So it really feels like he's just taunting Prime,
Mhm.
maybe trying to break his resolve, because at this point, Shockwave still withholding the Matrix from him. So maybe he's trying to do some like psychological tactics here. He says that the Constructicons are just one part of his grander plan, and the next is the most important. And he shows Prime Jetfire, who he's designed to be the most powerful and lethal of the Decepticon jets. Jetfire is a character I mentioned earlier. I have a really soft spot for him from the G1 cartoon,
Mhm.
though he's really barely in it. You know, he's in like one episode. But in that episode, he's a peaceful scientist, and he's woken in the midst of war, confused about where his loyalties lie, and he ultimately chooses the side of good before choosing to sacrifice himself for the Autobots. So, yeah, different origin story for him in the comics too. He's being made by Shockwave, which was not the case in the cartoon.
Doesn't Jetfire have like a complicated production history? Like,
Yes,
isn't
yeah, I think when he first shows up, he's called Skyfire, and they
yeah.
had to change that because I think potential confusion with some other series or license. So I always
That
think of him as Skyfire, but yeah, he's called Jetfire everywhere else.
and in fact, if you look at the, actually, I don't know that I'd ever noticed this before, but if you look at the lettering, it looks like maybe they wrote Skyfire and then Jet is sort of like they whited it out and then had to write Jet on top of that or something.
Oh, that's interesting. Mine is like digital, so I
Oh,
can't
right.
see that. But yeah,
Right.
maybe on yours it's more obvious thing. Yeah, he comes back now and then in the cartoon, but he's really barely even in it. But his design is massive and he looks really cool, so I always liked him. Yeah, he's got a different origin here in the comic, so I'm excited to see what he turns out to be like. He's a Decepticon in this though, so we'll see what happens with that. And also, I'm very curious why he's so important to Shockwave's plans. Like, he's a massive jet, and he's a deadly jet, but I don't know what he's going to do with it. We'll see, I suppose.
Yeah.
Shockwave says that Jetfire's body is almost complete, and then all he'll need is for Optimus to give him life using the Matrix, which means Prime will be bringing about the death of the Autobots. Prime thinks to himself that he won't be causing anyone's death but his own once Shockwave realizes that he really doesn't have the Matrix and is therefore of no further use to him. Prime thinks that he'll be glad to die knowing he kept the Matrix from Shockwave, and that that is as good a victory as any that could be won on a battlefield. Prime has a really good way of thinking about things.
He's got the leadership perspective, right?
Yeah, like I keep coming back to this. Like it's weird. Transformers is weird. The whole thing is weird. It's very goofy and very silly.
Yep.
But people have been into it for 40 years. So they've grown up like with these toys, which
Mhm.
as a child they're toys and they're fun and they're cool. But you get to a certain age where like you need more complex stories to keep your attention and stuff. Like, and that's just natural. That's a part of getting older.
Yep.
But Transformers sticks with people, and I think there's really something. There's a like something deep in it. There's like a level or a layer in there to these characters that keep people interested, even in their like 40s plus. And like everybody I speak to loves Prime.
Mhm.
And that's I feel like that's rare to have a leader character that actually everybody thinks is the coolest and like he's just a good guy.
Huh,
I've never
yeah.
heard anyone say anything bad about Prime. Never.
That's interesting. Yeah, because like, but with like X-Men and stuff, people are like, "Oh, Cyclops is lame, Wolverine is cool."
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
we all we all love how dedicated that Prime is to like just just being a good dude, you know? I think I mean um on your previous episode, Johnny had mentioned that like people come up to you know, actors at like
Oh,
my
nice,
father
nice step,
figure or
nicely done.
whatever for right. And I think there is something too that like even though these are robots, there's a certain like fundamental humanity underneath there that people will connect to, and that's all down to like the writing and deciding that like, yeah, this may be a toy tie-in comic, but like let's try to make it a good one.
Yeah, they did such a good job of it too. And I think maybe that's also why Superman has endured too. He's like this character from outside of being a human, but he's finding the goodness in being a human being.
Yeah.
Like, and it's never, at least this far into the comics and whatever that I've read, it's never like intentionally set out to be that way. They never set it up as like this moral tale. It's just it does it by itself. I think maybe that's what it is. Like the people tell read these stories are finding that in it, but it was never written to be that way. It's just what comes of writing a story about a good character trying to be a good, not, oh my god, I was gonna say good person, but you know what I mean. He's not a
Right.
person, but
No, I know. That's
just trying to do
that,
the
that
right thing and be good. Like that appeals to people, I think, that read these comics.
that's what I like about superheroes so much is that like they're very simple, but you can like sort of impute or pull out a lot of stuff from these very simple archetypes.
Yeah, I guess it's the reader's perspective, and what you get from it is why these things are important to you, whether or not
Hmm.
that was what it was, how it was written to be. Yeah, I really wanna talk to some people about that, like, I mean, guests that I have on have said similar things, but I wanna go to a con and just be
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Why? Why are you still into this? Like, what is it?" Maybe people don't even know. I think it might even be subconscious that you just connect to these characters. You might
I
not
mean,
sit
I
down and think like, "That's why I love Prime." Like, you don't necessarily work that out for yourself.
yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of it is just that like I look at these characters and like the shapes, right, are just like burned into my head as, as like there's something interesting to like looking at Optimus Prime or looking at Shockwave or
Oh, yeah,
any
I
of these
definitely think
these
that's
these
another
iconic
element. They're
designs,
just
right? And
fucking
like,
cool.
yeah, and that's so much of it is just like I like the aesthetic of what a transformer looks like, and I will always if anytime that anybody posts Transformers art or drawing or whatever, I'm just like, yeah, I love looking at this stuff.
Yeah, that's a huge element of it too. And yeah, even for me, like I'm not a toy collector at all, but having
Mhm.
read these and then getting a better idea of the characters makes me want to buy figures. And then some of them are so cool.
Well, see,
I
it
really
works,
want a
right?
Ratchet. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they got me. They got me. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that even like we went off on that big tangent about like not you know the morality of these stories, but yeah, they were essentially made to sell toys. And
Yeah.
even though I came at it from this completely roundabout angle, where I'm like, I love this leader character. He's such a um altruist, and he always tries to do the right thing, and he has made sure he never kills anybody, and he's riddled with guilt about war. So I want to buy a figure of him. So yeah, not the way they tried to get people to go and buy these toys, but it still worked.
Yeah, back in Portland.
Yeah, that's right. We're going back to Buster's place now, where he's finally taking Sparkplug home from the hospital. Sparkplug thanks Buster for coming to pick him up, and Buster says of course he came to pick him up. Sparkplug says that it's about time that he was released, and that the doctors will keep you in for a week for an ingrown toenail if you let them. Buster says, "You did have a heart attack, Dad." And Sparkplug says, it was only a little one. So Sparkplug is either really hardy, or putting on a brave face, or maybe a mixture of both.
Mm.
He says he can't wait to get back to fixing cars. And there's a little panel of him smiling with like a light coming out from behind him. Like he's absolutely itching to get back to work.
Right.
And he says, son, if my hands aren't coated with an inch of motor grease, they may as well not be on my wrists. And Buster from behind the car, getting Sparkplug's suitcase out from the back of the trunk, says, Dad, why don't you rest first? And then Sparkplug opens up the rolling door to the garage. He's expecting to see like car repairs that he needs to work through. He remembers Jane's car. Mission you might remember. Hello, Gary here, doing the edit process. You might have noticed a couple of times already in this episode that there are some weird audio blips caused by the bot that I use to record the Discord calls when I have a guest on. It's like jumping through my audio really quickly, and I don't know why. And most of the other times have been like not so bad. I think you can still understand what's being said. This time though, it just went completely bonkers. So what I was saying here was that Sparkplug remembers Mr. Fishbane's car needed its transmission rebuilt. Placed an angry phone call to Buster asking last issue and Buster asked for a few more days to fix his car. Right
Mm.
before his Doctor Man had powers kicked in, and he could just
Right.
suddenly see how to fix the cars. But not only that, he could fix it like we said before with like telekinesis and making things levitate. So not only did he see how to fix it, he can do it without even using his hands.
Yeah, I'm well, I won't keep harping on the nonsensicalness of the creation matrix, but yeah, that was, even like as a child reading this, I remember thinking like, well, how does that work? Like, what is the what i- what is the source of this creation matrix exactly?
Yeah, the whole thing. I don't know if it's ever going to be thoroughly enough explained for it to make perfect sense, but I just had a thought, like literally just now, about like I mentioned earlier on to Sparkplug and Buster's relationship and the kind of tragedy of this, or like the and tragedy is tragedy the right word? The irony, I don't know. Sparkplug has wanted Buster to be into fixing cars since we met him. Like the very first interaction they had was him like telling him he should stop trying to get a scholarship. He wants him to get some physical
Right.
skills or like skills with his hands. And now what's really sad is that Sparkplug thinks Buster is doing all this because he wants to do it and because he suddenly gained skills, but actually it's all, from the Matrix and everything. So it's
Yeah,
kind of really sad that like he's really happy about this. He's recovering from his heart attack and he thinks, "Oh, finally my son is doing what I want him to do." But actually, poor Buster has the secret. Like, not really. He didn't learn all this stuff, just magically do it, and he has to now balance knowing that and like at some point tell his dad, like, "I did fix all the cars, but not why or how you think I did."
yeah. That's I mean, that's the classic Marvel, angst, right? Well, my dad is the heart of so many superhero stories I know, certainly.
Yeah. But what dawned on me just now is that Sparkplug has wanted Buster to be doing this with all with his hands, but he has telekinesis. I don't know if
Right?
the entire telekinesis thing was just for this like point that he actually didn't even use his hands to do it. Like
Hmm.
I'm getting something from this that maybe wasn't intentional again, but that's really
Yeah.
like a really cool metaphor for this entire situation. Like he wants
Well,
him to
right.
start
Yeah.
using his
Because
hands. He thinks he did, but he didn't even touch the things with his hands physically. That's
yeah, because
really like
he's
poetic.
a yeah, he's a scholar, right? He uses his head, mind over matter.
Yes, 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 exactly. Yeah, that's man. If that is what they were going for with this, and that's why we have this nonsensical telekinesis, that's fucking amazing. But they never came
Wow.
out and made that clear.
Yeah.
But I think that's
But
so cool
that
if that's really
but
the
that's
reason.
that's for us, right? Like that's what another thing that I like about these like really simple stories is that like you can like pull these things out and like I don't know if you intended that, but I I had never even again I've read this for how many decades, right? And I've never made
Mhm.
that connection. Like there's I can still like be surprised by this 40-year-old Transformers comic,
Yeah,
right?
I never put that together either until just now. But I wonder if that's the entire reason we had all that. And if that's true,
Interesting.
that's really cool. I really want to ask Bob Budiansky that now. So anyway, the garage is empty inside, and Sparkplug asks, "Hey, where are all the cars?" Buster says he hopes Sparkplug doesn't mind, and that he's been meaning to tell him, but he fixed all the cars and even took on some extra business too while he was away. Sparkplug says, "Mind? I'm thrilled." And there's a really nice moment between the two of them. Since the beginning, there's been this little bone of contention between the two of them, with Buster wanting to get his scholarship. Hey, it's me again. I really hope something just went wrong for a short period of time, and this isn't going to be a persistent issue throughout the rest of the episode because there's quite a bit left to go. But yeah, the bot completely crapped out during this conversation. What I was saying was that Sparkplug doesn't know that the only reason Buster has been able to fix the cars is because he got the Matrix from Prime. Like it's all a supernatural occurrence, but he thinks that Buster is really interested in fixing cars and has suddenly learned how to be really good at it in a very short amount of time. And then he mentions to Buster that it's not too late to change the name on the sign of the garage to Sparkplug and Son. So it becomes clear that the real reason, possibly, that Sparkplug has been so hard on Buster from the beginning was that he wanted to pass on the garage to him when he's older and he wants to go into business together with him. So it seems like all of this stuff that's been going on from the very first issue was really thanks to that secret desire that Sparkplug has had but hasn't been able to say. He's never felt brave enough, he's never felt ready to fully admit his feelings to his son. Which makes this all the sadder. So yeah, maybe that was the real reason that he's been so hard on Buster since the beginning. He wants to share this with him. He wants to go into business with his son, and he wants to pass it on when he retires. And that's why he wants him to
Yeah.
get mechanical skills. And he wants him to spend time learning that instead of learning from books. And if that's the case, it makes this previous warm moment of pride for him even sadder because none of what he thinks has happened is actually happening. So I think later on
Mhm.
there's going to be a point that Buster has to either reveal that to Sparkplug or give the Matrix back to Prime and then lose all of that power and then has to admit what happened to Sparkplug. So either way, I can see another complication in their relationship coming at some point, and I'm so curious to find out how it's handled and what happens between them.
If I'm rubbing my hands because I know how this goes.
Relationship in this comic about giant space robots was not part of it that I ever expected to be so interested in. And it just goes to show how the human parts of a story about other things can actually be interesting if you just put in the right amount of time and effort to be interesting. Like the
Yeah,
American Godzilla movies could learn so much from this.
definitely. It does seem to be, like, only so interested in, like, the idea of this robot civil war, but he's like, "Yeah, we can do
Yeah.
a father-son we can do a father-son story," and, like, that's what it's about, and, like, that's I mean, as a kid, I certainly, like I don't know that I had, like, a adversarial relationship with my dad like this or anything, or disappointment or anything, but, like, I did get the idea of, like, yeah, it would be really hard if my dad wanted something and I was incapable of doing that or had no interest in doing that.
Yeah, and then, later on, from this point on, is when Buster has this that he wants to tell his dad about who he is and what he can do, and he has to keep it to himself, which, that's been the X-Men thing forever, right? Like, as being
Oh,
a
yeah, that's
any kind of person who has something that they need to tell their parents about themselves. That's the
mhm,
analogy that's, famous for the X-Men, so I'm really surprised to see it show up here, where now Buster has this secret about himself that
mm,
he can't tell dad, and I know it's not I'm pretty sure that was not written as a analogy for that, but it comes off as one.
yeah, I mean, that's the magic of stories, right? It's like, it's whatever we bring to it.
Yeah, I think
That's
so
such
too,
an
yeah.
interesting that's such an interesting again, how many times have I read this comic? And I'm
Yeah,
thinking about and I'm finding new things to think about.
and it's just the level of sophistication that is there intentionally or not. It's kind of fascinating to yeah, read this comic about giant transforming robots that came from space and be like, "Well, this is an analogy for having a secret from your parents that's burning you up," and like,
Right.
"What? That's crazy that it's in there." So good. So, yeah, as much as I make fun of these comics and I do laugh about things a lot, yeah, they're, genuinely incredible. Like,
Mhm.
man, would never have expected this to go this way. So Sparkplug says that maybe he will take that rest now after all. And over dinner, Buster can tell him how he learned so much about repairing cars so quickly. Buster thinks to himself, sure, but I'd like to know myself. Ever since Thomas zapped me, I've had this weird power. I can move mountains with a thought. So Buster, Buster has the two, right? And he has the other two, but he still hasn't added them together to get four yet. And I don't know how. You're so close, Buster. Just think a little bit more. He continues thinking about how now he can manipulate and understand metal objects as if they were an extension of his own body. And mending something as complex as an engine block is as simple to him as screwing in a screw. But he wonders how on earth he can explain that to his dad when he doesn't even understand it himself. The narrator tells us that it's a question to which he can find no answer, at least for now. ... Next, we're going to a totally new location with some totally new characters. We're at a truck stop, and the narration box says several hours later at a truck stop alongside a lonely stretch of the interstate. Oh, it says is in southeastern Idaho. And I had to reread this several times to work out.
I think that's Interstate 15. I think that's,
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I had to read it a bunch of times to because I thought that is didn't make any sense to be there. And the only
yeah,
reason I point that out is because there's been other times that this has happened now. So now and again, if
that
there's an error in
like, literally, that's barely legible.
the writing, is gonna change everything. Yeah, it
Yeah.
completely changes what's being said. That makes much more sense if it's 15. I didn't think about that. So at this truck stop in Southern Iowa, there's a diner, and there's a lot of trucks which are colored gray, but the one closest to the diner, only one that's colored in, and it's red, and it says Bomber Bill on it. And a voice from out of panel says, "Well, look who just rolled in." And in the next panel, we find out too. It's a waitress counter. She's talking, and she's wearing what looks like a very unusual green dress with frills on the shoulders and all the way around the neckline. So I thought, like, wow, that's an extraordinary dress to be wearing in a diner. But if you look closer, it's actually an apron, and then she's wearing like a white shirt
Yeah.
underneath it. So I mean, it being an apron doesn't make it any less weird, really. She looks pretty
Right.
odd, I think. But she calls to the person she was talking about, and it's the owner of the red truck, Bomber Bill, who's just walked in. And he's wearing like a sleeveless green jacket, which is green, and then it's covered in darker green spots. So I don't know if that's meant to be like camo or something.
Camouflage or something? Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, maybe. And he's got a blue baseball cap on and a leather wrist cuff there and some blue jeans with this big leather belt. And he's got this wild long blonde hair and a big blonde beard too. I think he's kind of what I would imagine if somebody said trucker.
Yeah.
I think that's just what a trucker looks like. The waitress asks Bill how he's been doing, and he replies, "Dandy, Ethel." You know, I love it when a character gets a name, and we have a Doris, and now we have an Ethel. I think all we need
Mhm.
now is like a Martha, and maybe a Pam,
Yeah.
and then we've got the whole set of old lady names. But I mean, for me, they're old lady names because I was born in the 80s, but these people were of like working age in the 80s. So maybe that's where that comes from. Maybe these were like trendy names at that time. I don't know.
Hmm.
Bill says he'll be even better once Ethel gives him a T-bone and taters with gravy, which actually that sounds delicious, but I don't know if a truckstone T-bone steak is going to be any good. It's not really so much a thing in the UK, but I've heard lots of like horror stories about truck stop food from the US.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't say that I was ever a truck stop, enthusiast or anything, but yeah, I mean, that's I mean, that's part of, like, the whole, like, romance of the idea of trucking, right? Like, there's this sort of like, "Oh, yeah, it represents freedom, and you can go, you can drive around, and you can go to these different restaurants, and somebody always knows you there, and you're your master of your own fate, and you can eat this amazing or not amazing steak and
I was about to say, would you eat a truck
gravy."
stop steak?
I would never. I would never.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure I trust it either.
I mean, I like my fast food and my junky stuff, but I suspect that these are I suspect that, like, if you're on the road, you maybe get to
Mm.
like it, sort of like in a yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
good.
like the way that
Maybe
this
it's not the
guy
best, but
right.
maybe it's comforting. But yeah, like you said, it's like Cheers or something. Like she knows him. She clearly
Yep.
like hasn't seen him for. I think it's only about a week. She'll say it's been a week since she's seen him, but that's long enough for her to notice. Like, oh, it's a long time. He hasn't been in.
Mhm.
Ethel says she'll get on it and bring a pot of black coffee for Bill to wash it all down with too. It's been a while since they've seen each other, and Ethel asks, "How come?" Bill tells her that he's been driving for 8 straight days and 12,000 miles. And I'm enough of a dork that I checked the math on that, and that actually works out as possible. So he could have done that really.
No.
But just imagining doing that makes my butt hurt. Like,
Right.
oh my god. Now, Bill and his truck, Bessie, are finally on their way home for some rest, and they should get there by sunrise. And Bill pulls out his wallet to show Ethel who he's rushing to get home to. And he's even like winking one eye as he
Mhm.
shows her, and he says, "Look at these kids. Aren't they beautiful?" Which maybe it's just my age or my love of kids or both, but that made me instantly really like Bill. Like you see when he first comes in, he looks like this big burly trucker guy, but he's really smushy on the inside.
Yeah.
I thought maybe at first he was flirting with Ethel a bit too. He was like, "Oh, I'll be better once I get some of your food," but no, he's just a big softy and he's a family man and he's putting
Mhm.
in an insane amount of effort to do his job quickly enough that he can get home to see his kids. Like that's so cute. But what's not so cute though are are his kids.
Yeah.
Because Ethel says, "Oh, they're darlings." But if you zoom in to look at Bill's photo, I mean, for me, I can zoom in because it's digital, but you've got
Yeah.
the physical issue there. But the photo in his wallet, like one of them looks like a caterpillar. But Bill says that his beautiful wife and his two adorable kids make it so hard for him to be away, out on the road for 2 weeks at a time. But the time away makes it all the sweeter to go back to them. And Bill says, "You know what I mean?" And Ethel agrees, saying, "I surely do." Outside, the Constructicons drive up, and Scavenger says that Shockwave was right. There are a lot of raw materials around this area that they're targeting. Scavenger's voice must have been pretty loud, though, because it startles everybody inside. And somebody's dropped a carton of milk on the counter there. And another customer asks Bill if he just heard that. Which, I mean, if it was loud enough that you dropped the milk, I'm pretty sure he heard it. But Bill looks really surprised and he's turning his head to the left and right. And he says that it came from outside. So they come outside from the diner and they can't believe what they're seeing. The Constructicons are taking their trucks and destroying them, lifting them in the air or tearing through the sides. And it says a random swing of Hook's crane shakes them from standing dumbfounded. And it looks like Hook smashes his hook into the diner and causes quite a bit of damage to it for no reason.
Yeah.
That seemed like a mean thing to do for no reason.
Right.
The other truckers flee, saying the Constructicons can keep their trucks, and they run off into the woods. But Bomber Bill stays behind. He thinks to himself that he's going home, and he won't be delayed by whatever is happening here. He's on a ridge while the Constructicons drive off into the distance.
It's one of those things that I again, like one of those like human interest things that like, I mean, it's a very simple character arc, right? I mean, it's like the guy who wants to go home to his kids, but like it's 2 pages, right? That we've been with this guy so far, and like we know exactly what his deal is, right? Like we have we
Yeah.
can we can extrapolate like his entire life story from these 2 pages, and like we have a very clear conflict. Yeah, we want to see him succeed, right? Like it's so economical, I think, and like that we have this
Yeah,
whole story in
it's
just
really nicely done and really subtly
in the
done in a way
margins.
that
Yeah.
comics don't always do, where sorry, I'm gonna rag on Marvel Comics again. I know you like them much more than I do, I think, but they used to just tell you that stuff in a narration box and be like, a big info dump, but instead of letting the characters do it for you, instead of letting you get it from context, they'd be like, "This is exactly what's happening." But this, they're like, yeah, they gave you just enough for you to figure that out by yourself,
Mhm.
which I really like. Yeah, and I really like Bill. I don't know if we'll see him again, but I hope we do. But for some reason, it's hours later, and Bill is scrabbling through the woods in the direction he saw the vehicles drive off. And he thinks that he saw them drive this way and wonders why. Nobody drives out this way. And he comes out of some trees and sees a bunch of headlights driving towards him. So he accidentally stepped out into a road. Lucky for him, though, the lights belong to the Autobots, who won't decide to hit him. But they don't decide to stop either. They have something else to attend to, even though Bill calls out to them to try and ask for a ride. And we get a little roll call of who's out on this mission. It's Hound, Bluestreak, Sideswipe, and Ironhide. He watches them drive away, thinking that he would have figured at least one of them would have stopped to pick him up. But he notices a straggler from the group coming up behind him and decides that they won't drive past him this time. So he stands in the middle of the road with his arms out, blocking the path. And it's Huffer, who says, "Human, you jeopardize your safety." Bomber Bill climbs in through the open door and says that Huffer stopped, so his tactic worked and it was worth the risk because he's desperate. And he explains about the Constructicons taking his truck and heading up this mountain. He says, "I aims to find 'em," which I like his accent there, because Bomber Bill don't let no one keep him from going home. And maybe that's like a southern twang thing he's got going on there. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
about
I
US
think
geography and accents.
yeah, I think Bomber Bill don't let no one keep him from going home, right? Is I think
I like him even more now. Guess what? The audio issues are continuing. Yay! This time it cut out me saying that Budiansky has cleverly given Bomber Bill and Huffer the same set of problems and had them meet each other. And that Bomber Bill didn't really realize for quite a while that there was nobody inside Huffer driving. Though he doesn't quite pick up on being called a human earlier, but his hair is flinging around like he's trying to turn his head really quickly, and his eyes are wide and he looks pretty terrified. But Huffer tells him to relax. They're on the same side, and they're both going after the same target. Bill asks who the voice means when it refers to itself, and Huffer introduces himself and tells Bill that he's sitting inside him right now. And Bill, understandably, doesn't like the sound of that, and I can't really blame him for that. He says he wants to get out. But we go to the top of the mountain next, which is where the Constructicons have reached. And they find a deep space radio telescope, which they were sent to find by Shockwave. So they plan to modify it and use it to Shockwave's ends. So this
Mhm.
telescope was already there. They didn't build this. Radio telescope. I don't
Yeah.
know what that is, if that's a thing or not. It looks like a satellite dish. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think is that maybe for like astronomy or something, maybe?
Is that a real thing? I should have looked that up, I suppose. A radioscope is a specialized antenna and radio receiver used to detect radio waves from astronomical radio sources in the sky. Huh. Okay.
And actually, I think it makes sense that those that would be in the mountains because that like there's you're away from like the light pollution and whatever other like sources of
Yeah.
interference there would be.
I think when I read this while I was making the notes, I kind of skipped over that this was there before. Because later on they do
Mhm.
modify it. So I kind of just thought, oh yeah, the Decepticons built it. But no, they modified something that already existed, which is cool. I didn't realize that. So they found this deep space radio telescope, which Shockwave found and then sent them to modify and put to their own or his uses. Mixmaster says that he wants to get started and mash these brainless hunks of junk. Hook says his mixing drum is thirsty for fresh bodies to melt, which is pretty grim, really. The Constructicons think of metallic objects as if they were living in the same way that they are, and mashing up bodies is what he wants to do badly enough that he's itching to get to work. So Mixmaster at least comes off as kind of a psychopath here. This is pretty scary. So I kind of wonder if that will continue and what effects, if any, it's going to have on Devastator. Soundwave pipes up to say that Mixmaster needs to be patient. He's going to broadcast some interference first, which will prevent anyone from detecting them. Our work, he says, must not be interrupted. I think this panel is him broadcasting some interference, like an interference field. And it looks really cool. He's like clenching his fists by his side, and this kind of electrical swirl is going around his body. It's a bit Disney character though, isn't it? It's a bit like, I don't know, it reminds me of the fairy godmother with the sparklies going up the body and stuff. Mind you, Cinderella was not doing this power pose though. That would have been cooler.
That would, yeah. Disney really missed a trick there.
Yeah, right. Cinderella like, ah! And then heading off to a party. Once Soundwave's protective dome is up, the Constructicons start their work. Bone Crusher starts ripping apart trucks for materials. Scavenger's shovel has a sensor, which he can use to search the earth for specific elements. Mixmaster can blend the two into new alloys, which Scrapper can mold into whatever shape they need. Longhole it's kind of passed over here. Everyone else does something pretty useful and unusual, but he kind of just moves the things that are finished around. Right. And then that's your job. And then Hook assembles the completed pieces. They work like this for hours at, it says, a frenzied pace. Later on, Bumblebee, who is close by, but I guess outside of the dome Shockwave made, he's sitting waiting for the other Autobots to track his signal and to catch up with him. He says he's happy to see that everybody was able to find his location, but that they won't be happy to see what the Decepticons have been working on. And Bomber Bill looks surprised. He looks actually a little bit excited to me when he looks over and sees this like colossal thing the Decepticons have built. Someone asks, "What is it?" Hover says that this is the same thing he was working on in the Ark, but it's much, much bigger. It's a gigantic, we got some more science jargon here, trans-dimensional radio wave scrambler. It looks like it's finished and it's ready to be used to call Cybertron. The scrambler has been built into Soundwave, who has like these big, thick cables running from what looks like a huge dish shape, but it's made out of hollow tubes. And it's like the cables are running into his cassette deck. I think it looks really cool, and it's kind of gross too. Like it's been attached to him that way, like in his chest. I really like. There's like a slight kind of robot body horror bent to some of the things in this comic. Like, I think it's. If I was a kid, I wouldn't have thought so. I think I would have just been like, yeah, they're robots, it's fine. But as an adult, you look at it and you're like, ugh, that's kind of gross. But I really enjoy that. I think it's cool. Like Prime's head being on those pipes that look like spider legs is really horrible too. I think it's really cool. And now, we got this thing, like this giant thing, like many times bigger than Soundwave, is connected to his body. It's pretty, in a way, gross, but I like it.
Oh yeah, and like even though it's made out of metal, it has this sort of like weird, like organic shape almost to it. Like it looks like some sort of like a sea anemone or something.
Yeah, it's gross. Soundwave sees the Autobots and yells how they managed to find him. One of the Autobots shouts out that since they don't know what it is that the Decepticons are going to do with the Scrambler, they should destroy it. Since whatever it is can't be good. His truck, Bessie, in the area, and is excited to see that she's untouched. He says he's going to get Bessie out of here. Shockwave tells the other Decepticons that the Scrambler is not charged yet. He needs time, and that the Autobots need to be held off until he's ready. He tells the Constructicons to combine. Prowl begins telling the Autobots to transform, but he stops midway to ask what those, quote, cons are doing. And I like this. They've started saying cons instead of, what was it they said before?
What was
Decept. And I didn't like it. Yeah, Decept. Now it's cons, which I like much better. The Autobots watch in awe and witness a transformation unlike anything they've seen before. The 6 Constructicons come together to form the gigantic Titan Devastator. And Bomber Bill says that Ethel must have started spiking the coffee at the diner. He says, "I don't believe I'm eyeballing this." But he collects himself and says that the robots can fight all they like. He's going to take Bessie and get out of there. I think I mentioned this last issue too with Michael, but to make a transformer is kind of insane already. Like just one robot that transforms. To make that as a toy, to like physically design how that works is really impressive to me. But to do that for 6 separate ones that then can combine to make one giant one is like insane. And I think weren't the toys based on Diaclone stuff, which was Japanese?
Yeah.
Is that right? So I wanted to wonder if that comes from like origami, just having that kind of skill or like
Ooh.
thinking about something that way that can fold up. Because that's just so crazy to be able to design that. And not only like one of them, there's several of these that do that, right? There's
Yeah.
like
Interesting.
Superion.
Mhm.
Crazy. Like I just can't imagine even having that idea and being like, yeah, that's something that's possible. I can do that. What? 6 separate robots that can turn into vehicles that can also turn into one giant. That's so crazy. Like, yeah, again, as silly as Transformers are, that I'm so impressed by that anyone could design that.
Yeah.
And then be like, yeah, this is a fun toy for children. Who will not appreciate any of that work. But actually, really smart move. Do you happen to know Devastator, the Constructicons? Did you have to buy them all separately, or was it like a set?
I don't know. I unfortunately I never had a Devastator. I had some of the other ones that like they did. I just had some of the other combiners, but I never had all of them in a set. So I would have like a leg and I would have like a leg and an
Oh
arm.
no.
But so yeah,
I
I mean
think it was
those
the same way
there
for
definitely were ones that sold separately, but
Power Rangers was like that too, wasn't it? You could get the Megazord, and I think yeah, you had to buy all the toys separately.
mhm,
Like really smart way to make money. That's
yeah.
that's clever, but also really mean. Poor kids. Anyway, Devastator introduces himself officially by saying, "Oh, crumple before Devastator," and it fires some kind of energy beam at Ironhide, who looks like they're being shocked. And from behind, Prowl shoots Devastator's shoulder, while Bumblebee throws what looks like the body of a beetle at him.
Oh yeah, for Bumblebee to hit somebody with another car, it's sort of like swinging a dead body at some.
That's gross.
There is body horror in Transformers, isn't there?
Yeah, earlier in one of the earlier issues that like I think it was Bumblebee who hid behind a burned out car, which was like, yeah, he's hiding behind a corpse. That's gross. And Bumblebee, his name makes no sense. Why isn't he called Beetle or Bug or something? I
Yeah, I
know
don't
it's because
know.
he's yellow, but
Right.
it doesn't make sense. Prowl is impressed though, and he says that's some gimmick. He's never seen a Decepticon that big. Ironhide tries spraying Devastator with liquid nitrogen, and he tells Huffer that since he's the strongest one of them there, while Devastator is frozen, he should smash the Scrambler. At the same time, Bomberbill is finding out that Bessie, even though she's intact, won't start right now. He's turning the key in the ignition there, but she won't turn over. Devastator yells, "Die, Autobots!" and he smacks Ironhide over. Ironhide notices that Devastator is slow, but packs a punch if he does manage to hit you. Buffer. Buffer was a 90s Transformer made by a real player. But Huffer approaches the Scrambler, which is several times bigger than him, and wonders how he's supposed to smash it. In the next panel, he seems like he's sneaking behind Soundwave, who's in the foreground but talking to Devastator, calling him a miswired clod, which doesn't sound like anything that Soundwave would say, but I like this kind of sassy version of Soundwave.
Yeah.
He's telling him to get over here and destroy the Autobots before they ruin everything. Buffer knows that by using the Scrambler, he could call Cybertron, and it's giving him pause. He doesn't want to destroy the Scrambler and sacrifice his chance at making contact with Cybertron, which none of this really makes sense. They want to do it by radio wave, which, like, takes a long time to travel, and also they don't know where Cybertron even is anymore. It's been 4 million years, and it's been
Yeah.
floating through space. It could be anywhere. I don't know how they're planning to do this, but transform and roll with it, I guess. Yeah, you have to sometimes just go with it. It's what the plot needs, so that's
Yep.
what's happening. Devastator seems to have heard Soundwave, but gets confused, wondering which Autobot he should destroy. I suppose it's reasonable that having 6 separate brains is going to be confusing, and that's what
Yeah, I like that he
Devastator a
has
bit
that
slow
weakness.
on the uptake.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's 6 brains in there trying to control one body. It's going to get confusing. That's my headcanon for why it's so slow. Ironhide shouts to Huffer that Devastator, though out of the ice now, is confused. Oh, so he has to be quick and smash the scrambler while Devastator is thinking. Huffer, who looks exactly like a thumb in this picture. Like, his head came out really weird looking in this picture. But he
Yeah.
says that they shouldn't be rash. They should just think of another option. But before they have time to do that, a huge burst of light comes from the scrambler, and a sound so loud it shakes the mountaintop that it's standing on. Which, I don't know, can it do that? Could it make a sound? Why would it? Oh, whatever. Soundwave celebrates that he's been successful. Nothing can stop his signal reaching Cybertron now, and pulses of energy start coming from his chest, and they run down the cables and into the scrambler, which fires them in a huge beam out into space. The radio waves are, quote, warp dimensional spinning to Cyber hundreds of light years away. That's like incredibly far. Hundreds of light years is that's so far. There would be like a gigantic delay in sending waves that far, but that's why I guess they throw in interdimensional. Just it's science. Right. Have you heard the song "She Blinded Me with Science" by Thomas Dolby? It's a really great song, but all throughout the song, there's just a guy yelling "Science." That's pretty much this for me.
Science!
And it means the message can get there in a reasonable amount of time, I guess. Not to mention that none of the Transformers even know where Cybertron even is. So they're just beaming this message out into space and just hoping it gets there. And actually, in the show, it would be Shockwave that would receive this message, right? But so I don't know who's even there in the comics. I guess maybe we'll find out. But one more thing, though. It has been 4 million years, so technology should have advanced on Cybertron by now to the point that they can't even receive radio waves because they're so antiquated.
Yeah, it's basically caveman, like, right? Like, like sending signals to them.
This is fire, like smoke signals in the sky. Like no one knows what this is. I don't think either in this comic or like even the most prolific science fiction writer could write speculative fiction about 4 million years of technological advances. So
yeah, for people who are already robots, right? So
yeah. Devastator is still just standing around being confused, trying to pick which Autobot to destroy. And it looks like there's a cyclone blowing around him now. And he's just shot Bumblebee in the foot, who's kind of falling over next to Devastator's leg in the panel. Ironhide figures out what's going on and tells Huffer that the Decepticons must have somehow figured out the location of Cybertron, and that if they're allowed to communicate with it, it would not only endanger the Autobots, but the lives on Earth too, which they have sworn to protect. Huffer must destroy the Scrambler, but it seems like it's too late. They've sent the message, it's too late. Bomber Bill overhears all this and says to himself, protect Earthlings. So he's cottoning on that the Autobots are the good guys. Huffer realizes that Ironhide is completely right, and that his earlier behavior was foolish. A whole Decepticon army could arrive on Earth if Soundwave's message is delivered. So he steels himself and thinks, Soundwave, you're about to be disconnect. But he was thinking about that for too long. Devastator finally made up his mind and blangs Huffer in the back of the head, which sends him falling forward, like face first, with a grunt. Bill, who overheard Ironhide's speech, is gunning Bessie right towards the Scrambler and Soundwave. There's like clouds of smoke coming up from the wheels, and Bessie looks like she's going top speed, which I don't know how fast that is for a truck that's that heavy, but
Yeah.
Bill says that making threatening phone calls ain't something we look kindly upon. And next he says, driving Bessie through the low-hanging cables and snapping them all. In other words, your dime's just, he says, run butt, mister, which I think, that's supposed to say out.
Yeah, I think that's out. It looks in my copy, it looks like it's clearly out. So maybe they seem to have corrected something that was never wrong in the first place in the new edition.
Yeah. I don't know how, I mean, that was like maybe more than 10 years ago. I don't know what they used. Was there like some automated, like clearly a person didn't do that because that makes no sense to do. So they must have automated the process somehow, but I really don't know how you would do that. That was before, I mean, AI was always, we already had it, but it wasn't the thing that it is now, where I can imagine that being like possible.
Right.
They must have had some, I don't know, some program that recognized the text somehow. That doesn't seem too implausible.
Made guesses, but yeah.
Yeah, it made bad guesses, but it made guesses. Your dime's run butt, mister.
I like that better.
Actually. Yeah. Soundwave has a pretty cool line here. He says, by severing my cable connections, Fleshling, you've only freed me to kill you. And
yeah.
I don't know why everyone has the same voice when I do it, but Soundwave picks up Bomber Bill and Bessie. And that's a big old truck, too. So that's pretty scary.
Mhm.
Bill, somehow, is brave enough to tell Soundwave to take his hands off Bessie. And Huffer, recovering now, yells, Bomber Bill! And he punches Soundwave in the hip, which, that's where he gets his power from.
Right.
Like, why there? Like, right in the butt.
Right.
Even Soundwave's even bending over backwards, like, oh!
Because his times just run butt.
Oh, that's right! That's perfect. That's so funny. Yeah, he punches him right in the hips, which, that was a good place to choose because it knocks him over.
Yep.
And then he's able to, safely grab hold of Bessie with one hand. So Huffer is really strong. Soundwave from the ground tells us that the energy surge from the disconnection is destroying the scrambler. I don't know if that makes any sense. Pulling out a cable or having a cable destroyed is enough to make an energy surge that destroys the thing. That doesn't add up to me, but I don't know if disconnecting a wire does that.
Science. Right.
Science. Yeah, I need that. I need to clip that out. I think from the film.
Right.
Science.
Science.
Yeah. Okay. So busting the wires messed the thing up. Instead of what should be a pretty simple repair, I bet we're just never going to see this thing ever again.
Yeah. He
does mention, though, that at least most of his message was transmitted. So I'm eager to find out what comes from this. Because in the cartoon, like I said before, the Decepticons' main contact on Cybertron is Shockwave, but he's here on Earth in the comics, so I have no idea who they're even trying to contact on Cybertron and who's going to be there. But you know who it is, right?
I can say nothing.
Oh, I can hear you itching. We'll get there. Soundwave continues that the Constructicons as Devastator were noticeably less coordinated and able to think, so he asks them to separate into their vehicle forms again. He turns into cassette deck mode and leaps into long haul, and the 7 of them leave. Prowl orders the other Autobots to just let them go. After the thrashing they just got, they're in no condition to chase and engage them again. Huffer is feeling embarrassed about his actions earlier, having not destroyed the Scrambler when he had the chance, and he asks the rest of the Autobots to forgive him. His homesickness took over, and given that Ironhide mentioned the possibility of an invading army coming to Earth as a result of this message, which they just heard was mostly delivered, so yeah, I bet Huffer's really feeling worried about whatever is coming next. But it could be argued that that's all his fault.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it's not another Autobot that gives Huffer a pep talk, it's Bomber Bill, who says that nothing can eat at you like homesickness, and it's the reason he was out here chasing the Decepticons in the first place, which he admits wasn't a very smart thing to be doing for a human. Huffer seems to be a little bit reassured by that, and tells Bill that he speaks wisely. And Bill, love him, says that we're all the same, big buddy. We all suffer from the same aching, and we all make mistakes. Bill, to use a perhaps overused word on the internet these days, but he's wholesome as fuck, and I really, really hope this isn't the last time we see him. He's such a nice guy.
I don't recall him coming back, but he very might well. I don't have I actually don't have a complete run, so there could be lots of Bomber Bill content in ones that I don't have.
I just feel like maybe Circuit Breaker's more likely to come back than Bomber Bill, but we'll see. Huffer says that Bomber Bill is right once again, and that they're not quite as similar as he posits because now Bill can go home, and Huffer says in this panel where he's all grey except for his eyes. So it's like so dramatic.
Yeah.
I imagine if it was a movie or something, all the sound would stop. There'd be no background sound or anything, and it would just be his voice that says, I can't. It's so dramatic, and it really sticks out and feels kind of odd. I guess it's the first time the color has completely drained from a panel. And there's an epilogue now. It says that Shockwave has connected Prime to the lifeless body of Jetfire. Everything should work correctly, but Prime has not infused life into Jetfire with the creation matrix. Prime answers that he has nothing to say about it, and Shockwave says he'll have everything checked again, but if everything else is set up correctly, then the problem must be with Prime. And if that's the case, Prime is no longer of any use to Shockwave, and that he has no reason to allow him to continue to live. And in this panel, we can see a bright red phone in the background, relaying all of this to the Autobots in the Ark, thanks to GB Blackrock's nifty and perhaps impossible phone hack. And in the background in shadow is Shockwave talking to Prime's disembodied head. That shot of them both actually looks really cool. Prime's head is slightly raised and Shockwave's kind of standing in front of him. Looks like maybe with his arms crossed, looking up straight into Prime's face and talking to him. And then in the last panel, we see Prowl and GB hearing all of this. and the narration says that both are used to dealing with adversity in their own ways, but hearing this come through the phone makes both of them feel nothing but helplessness, and they don't know what to do about that. Dun dun dun. So that's the end of this issue.
A cliffhanger, but crucially, for the first time, I could read the next issue and find out how that resolves itself. Although it doesn't really in the next one.
No, not quite yet, but we'll get there. I think in the third one, maybe. Yeah, this was a really fun one. I didn't expect the conversation to go in some of the ways that it did, but I'm glad it did because that was really interesting again.
Yeah, I really enjoy the I mean, again, it's a simple idea of like, oh, like two people are homesick for different things, and that kind of connection or whatever. But like, it's very simply done, but it's effectively done, and um, yeah, it really works. One thing that actually I will bring my knowledge of wider Marvel to bear here
Mhm.
is the editor in chief, Jim Shooter. He had
Yeah.
this he had very very specific ideas about like what makes a good for what makes for a good story. And one of the things that he supposedly pushed all the writers for, whenever they could, is to have a story that says like have a character like want something and like, or I don't want to do this, but I have to, right?
Uh-huh.
And so like that's what we see here, right? Is that like, oh, I don't want to destroy this, this sea anemone satellite dish thing, but I have to, right? And like, sometimes people make fun of Jim Shooter's little like every story has to have that and like cram it in wherever you can. But when you do it like this, where it seems very purposeful, it is very effective, right? Because I mean, I
I
felt
think
bad
it's really clever
for little
because,
Huffer. Yeah.
yeah, they had Hopper feeling homesick, which is like a human emotion, which pointed out at the time, like, yeah, well, even though he's a robot, he has some of these same human emotions that you do. And then the character to help him with that and deal with that and feel better about making a bad decision because of that was a human character. Which that's really clever.
Yeah.
They're doing, yeah, the writing does lots of things I just never would have expected. And then you read it and you don't necessarily pick it apart. But doing it right now, I'm like, what a smart move to have like, oh, he's having this like human like emotion and it's messing with him. And then yeah, the one to help him deal with it and feel better about that is a human being.
Mhm.
Like none of the Autobots could have done that. So that's really nice. We're gonna come back to this and you're gonna join me again next week for the next issue, right?
Yes, you can't keep me away.
No, yes, awesome. That's great. All right, then that's the story for today. But Justin will join us again next week to find out what happens. Thank you so much. That was really fun.
Yeah, I had such a good time with it.
Ah, good. I'm glad you did. That's all for this week. Thank you again to Justin for being just a gem and coming on this ride with me. I'm so excited to continue these 3 issues and find out all the things that he's been very kindly keeping to himself while we've been reading through. And a big thanks to my 2 Patreons, Mel and Corey, who both kicked me a few bucks this month. I actually used them this week on Wednesday night to get a quick meal at a restaurant, which meant no cooking and no cleaning for me that night, which enabled me to finish the massive edit on last week's episode, which was over 2 hours long. And this episode seems like it'll be just as long too, I think, but there's not really much for me to edit. I think everything was pretty tight this time. If you'd like to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/Transformers Autobook Club and become an Auto Bestie or a Decepticon Padre by sponsoring the show for at least $3 a month. Everyone who does gets a thank you in the show, and hopefully at some point in the near future, access to a short Patreon exclusive bonus episode covering 1 chapter of the Transformers manga every month. I think I can just about manage to do that. As always, I'm on the lookout for guests, though the schedule is a bit crammed for a while. If you contact me, I'll be able to pencil you in somewhere. To volunteer, you can contact me on Blue Sky, which is at Clarion Comics JP, and there you'll also be able to hear about any other comics that I've been reading recently. You can email transformersautobookklub@gmail.com, or you can comment on the videos on YouTube, which I'll definitely see. Or you can join our Discord and talk about giant robots with me, some listeners, and some previous guests using this QR code or the link in the episode description. Giving the show a review on your podcast platform of choice for podcast listeners is very helpful, and liking the video, sharing the link around, and commenting are all ways YouTube viewers can help out too, and of course don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, until next time, take care, be kind, and do good. Till all are one!